Today we're going to learn the fundamentals of something called creaming method, which is in everything you want to bake. You're going to always be told to try to bring your ingredients to the same room temperature. So like you start with butter, and the butter should be like soft, really soft. So I'm going to use this bench scraper tool to help cut it. I would say the colder your butter, cut it into the smaller pieces. Like especially if you need like emergency cookies and your butter's a little chilly, you forgot to take it out. So I'm just going to put it into a bowl. And then the next ingredient in usually is sugar. Could be powdered sugar like in this recipe. It could be a regular granulated sugar. The sugar, if you think of it, under a microscope is kind of sharp, like little blades. And what that does is it helps make space in the fat of the butter so it can hold in the next ingredient, which is almost always in this method, an egg. That's the paddle, this is the bowl. I'm gonna raise the arm and we're gonna turn it on. Low speed is 1. And we wanna kinda like watch it. With a cookie in particular, the more air that's gathered in the creaming method, it spreads a lot. So you don't really want your cookies spreading like into each other, for example. That's one reason why the ingredients are supposed to be room temperature. It helps them what we call emulsify, which is to mix together the fats and the water in the butter and the egg. So we're just making it fluffy. Fluffy is not cold and clingy. It's moving around pretty well, so I think we're okay. I'm going to take the egg and I'm just gonna crack it flat on the table. That's gonna let me get into the shell. The egg should also be room temperature ideally. Now, we've got a fork, okay, just to kind of help us beat the egg yolk, because if the egg, especially if it's cold, is like all stuck together, clinging to itself, what that's going to do is like it's going to just jump into the butter and sugar mixture, which is not helpful in terms of this emulsion, where we're trying to mix the fats in the water. So I have fluffy butter and sugar. I'm going to trickle in my egg that I've beaten nice and slowly. It's like let your butter talk to you. If your butter is still fluffy, it's happy with the rate you're adding your egg. If you add it too fast, or the egg or the butter are too cold, you're gonna see it look kind of wet and glistening. So these are what we call our dry ingredients, and what we're gonna do is put them into the mixer bowl. Put them in them all at once. And we're gonna put it on low speed, and we're gonna mix to what they call just combined. So we're just gonna mix it on low speed until like the flour part disappears. Okay, so we finished mixing and we have a lovely emulsified cookie dough ready to go. There's many ways to roll the log. One thing is to partially chill the dough, maybe 10 minutes. It can cooperate a little bit better than when you first made your emulsified cookie dough. If you just use your clean hands and you spread the cookie batter, that's a good way to start, and there's nothing wrong with that. But check this out, if you use the parchment, you can kind of like help you roll it into a log, okay? And the log may not be perfect at first, so if it's very frustrating, like your kitchen is warm or something like that, you can put this even in your freezer for 10 minutes and it will all just roll much, much better. So we have a log, you know, it's been frozen either 20 minutes or in the fridge about half an hour, or you could keep it honestly in your freezer for, I would say, 2 months. So we're gonna cut with the chef knife, and I'm just gonna trim off the end for a second. And then to keep it round, I'm gonna rotate 90 degrees each time. So I'm just gonna kind of come back and forth, because if you keep cutting, you're not gonna keep it round. One side will flatten out, like if you just kept one side down the whole time. So you do wanna kind of cut fairly quickly so it's still a roll and cold. Here are some different styles from this exact same dough. If you bake on a silicone baking sheet, those are non-stick, so it makes it like the cookie gets to move. On parchment, the cookie doughs always move a little bit less, so like the parchment kind of makes it like grip a little bit. So you can see we kind of start to get a little bit more of an edge. When you actually bake it though in a ring like this, that's what makes this nice straight edge. It's just completely up to you what you have for your baking tools or what kind of style effect you're going for. I'm gonna take a little tiny bit of fleur de sel and put it on the top before we bake, and that's about it. These are gonna bake, and then when they come out, they're like this about 8 minutes later. When you see something ask for creaming method, it's gonna ask for your ingredients to be at the same room temperature. That allows the emulsion between the fats and the water in the butter and the egg to come together more permanently, and be fluffy, not wet and curdled looking. You want, in this case, to feature the butter. You want it to melt in your mouth, and that is what this is supposed to be. You can see it's got really pretty with the pecans. It's nice and buttery, and that's it.